and welcome to Conversations on Kotoku. My name is Irabna Jaman. I'm CEO of Wear Ghana, a company that's using the business of fashion to celebrate African excellence, inspire the next generation of African entrepreneurs, and create opportunities for women. Because of how deeply we believe in the fact that it is enterprise that will fix Africa, we have created a line that is celebrating African entrepreneurs. And I am honored to have the founder of Kawa Moka, premium coffee brand that's looking to take over the world of coffee and include women in all its processes, and especially create opportunities for the community of Leklebi, where the coffee is currently sourced. And what a pleasure it is to have you here, Emi-Beth. To be honest, when I heard of the Kawa Moka brand, I had seen it from afar, and I thought, oh, this must be a very established brand, which I just hadn't heard about. And then some way, somehow, our paths cross, and I'm like, wow. So thank you for making the time.
Thank you for the invitation. The pleasure is all mine to be here.
You're most welcome. First question would be, did you always know that you were an entrepreneur?
I would say no, because I think like most people, you go to school, you're focused on primary school, getting the grades, not being last in class, moving to the next class. They ask you, what do you want to be? It's always like lawyer, doctor, I ended up being an accountant, but I never thought I would be an accountant. So in many ways, no, I didn't think I'd be an entrepreneur. I did have a lot of entrepreneurial examples around me. So my mom is a lawyer, but she set up her own practice. My dad is an agronomist, but he also branched into hospitality. So he used to own the land that has now become Volta Serene. So he started a hotel there before it was bought out. So I've had examples all around me of entrepreneurs. So I guess unconsciously I was imbibing, all of that.
Let's talk about growing up, though. And a lot of the times when people see a brand that's doing well, the assumption is, this is someone who grew up in the States and has just come down to do this thing. Where did you grow up? What was your childhood?
I was educated completely in Ghana. I grew up in Ghana. I started my education in Ho, so I lived in Ho for a while. My grandmother had a school. So we used to go to Mrs. Amable's school, which was like literally you walk out the door and you're in her school. And then I went to Kaburi and I moved to Alcid Academy. So I always say it's the best school. It was the best foundation ever. Very small class sizes. We still talk a lot as alumni. We have a meetup on Friday.
So where's Alcid at?
It's in Jolu.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. I was telling you I grew up, right up the street. I'm not giving away any information, I hope, but I grew up literally up the street. So this is our route, walking down, Sits Theater, all those, there's some yam and chofi seller in the corner that we use. So that was my childhood. Then I went to Achimota boarding school. Did science, and then just trying to decide what to do next. Was at the time that Ashesi was formed. So then I went to Ashesi, and as you know, that was a transformational experience.
Let's talk about Ashesi because it played a big part in Kawa Moka being birthed. What would you say is the role of education in general when it comes to the entrepreneurial journey?
I think education is a very big one, and it starts all the way from the foundation. For me, I think the foundation is very critical because I look back at my ALSA teachers, and it was just that encouragement to dare to try, not to be intimidated by math. I meet so many people who are like, oh, I don't like math. I had excellent math teachers. They didn't make it difficult. Mr. Zumano, Mr. Parry, Mr. Labi. I mean, they were all really amazing people. And it's just that basic literacy, the ability to read and write and just think a little bit about it, that what does this mean to me? So I think that foundation is very important. And then on the career level, you come to the universities and the secondary schools that build on your technical knowledge and your critical thinking. And I think that's where Ashesi has really differentiated themselves. It's about critical thinking. So what problem are you solving in the world? And I think that's very upfront. It's very problem solving oriented. So you're always thinking about, oh, what's the real problem and how do I solve it? What's around me? It doesn't have to be something, big, but it just has to be something that impacts you in your own way. And be aware that there are people that are different from you. Regardless of whether you were extremely Dada B or, not Dada B, where you came from, everybody has something within them that they have to offer the world. So what is that? And it's your experiences that speak to it. And I think another thing that Ashesi really helps with is thinking about community. So you'll find that even now, as they've moved into Brekusu, there's a lot that they're doing with the community over there. And I guess the biggest one is ethical leadership. So I've gone back to school to take some sessions on, I forgot what it's called, but they have a session where you go and you talk about real life examples where your ethics were challenged. Because we all think of ethics as this big thing where you know what is right and you know what's wrong. So if you do what's wrong, you consciously knew it. But it's one little decision at a time. You decide to smudge the date on something. It's little things. I'm in traffic, or you're at home, I'm in traffic, So how do you build on that to be a responsible, ethical leader? And I think Africa as a whole at this point really needs leaders who are ethical, who are thinking about their people, and who are looking to create a Ghana that will stand on its own 2 feet and can highlight all the goodness that it has.
Absolutely. What does success look like for Kawa Moka today? What will it look like in the year 2085?
Oh wow, would I be alive?
But
it would definitely be nice to have a company that transcends the owner, founder. I think a lot of enterprises end up being based on who started it, and when that person is away, it becomes a bit more difficult. So not necessarily, because I always say I don't want my family to feel obligated to have to run my company because I started it. But I'd like to get to a point where people don't even know who founded the company. The business stands on its own, the product stands on its own. You have a competent CEO leader who runs the company. So I'd love to see that. I'd love to see Kawa Moka as a household brand that everybody knows. So enjoying the product, continuing to explore the Ghanaian flavors we've started with. So we have like our Prekese coffee and our ginger, Dawadawa, moringa. So for us, that's a sense of pride because these are things that are unique to West Africa and that are known to us. So it's like being able to introduce that to the world and seeing that they enjoy it. And then, of course, a big one is just the impact we continue to have. So right now, our primary source of coffee is from a community called Liklebi in the Volta region. And I would just like to see that impact be visible in the community. More children going to school, more women being able to farm and have more options in their life choices. So and Kawa Moka just being global as well. So not just in Ghana, in Africa, because AFCFTA, Africa trading with itself is a big one, and then also global. So that's where we see Kawa Moka.
How has this journey changed you, Emi-Beth? Do you sometimes look yourself in the mirror and wonder, what happened? Has there been any difference?
I always say, entrepreneurship is madness.
Absolutely.
When you're in it, you're wrapped, before you start, you're wrapped in this dream and this vision, and it's like anything is possible. And you always think it'll take much less time, much less money, much less effort to get where you want to. And then you look back and you're like, why on earth did I do that? And especially in my case, I had a great job, great opportunities. And a lot of people are like, why would you leave that to come in? But it's always that desire, again, honed in by university to do more, or what kind of impact can I have and what more can I bring to Beth. So it has changed me in the sense that there are many things I don't take for granted anymore. I think a lot of people look, like just like you said, they look at people on the surface and they think that is all that they're defined. But I really try and look beyond that to understand why they are where they are and what could change that. And really not take for granted all the support I've gotten along the journey. It really does take a village to build a company, and that's from everything from mentors to people who believe in you, people who tell others about your product, to people who walk on that path day by day with you. So it's been humbling, and it makes you question a lot what the purpose of life is. Like, why am I here?
What's the purpose?
I'm still looking, but I think that what I find fulfilling is ultimately we're people, on the earth, put on for a journey. And I find that working with people, having an impact on people outside of the product and all the things that come out, for me, brings my most fulfillment. And that really helps. Just knowing that one person who may not have sold their coffee now has a buyer, and what that means for them. So, and what that means for me. So just still searching, but I think God puts us where we are and gives us our talents for a reason. So it's just trying to bring that out and find out how we can share it with the world.
Let's talk about mental health. How are you taking care of your mental health?
Mental health is a big one. I see it with entrepreneurs a lot. It's a tough journey. It's more lonely than you expect. You're broker than you expect. Sometimes you see your friends as well, because people tend to compare. Unfortunately, friend has a car and you're paying bills. Like, sometimes it feels like every day I'm paying bills, but I'm not paying, myself, my worth, so to speak. So I think it's important to always remember your why, and to understand that it's a marathon and not a sprint. And there's seasons for everything. There are times when you'll be building, there'll be times when you'll be reaping. So it's just keeping that in mind and defining success as well based on what your reality is. For me especially, I don't spend as much time on the business as I would like to, because I have a young family. And I understand as well that that's a season. So I make sure that I prioritize them as well as the business, but it's also finding that balance and not thinking, I could be way further if I, did this much more. At what cost? So it's really being able to define what's important to you, define what success means. I would like to have a big company, with structures, many workers, but does that need to happen now? Maybe not. So, paying attention to those cues and what you tell yourself, because a big part of mental health is what you're saying to yourself.
What do you tell yourself?
I'm amazing.
Wonderful. And when the times are tough?
Yeah, I have a fan club, which helps, because sometimes you forget, and I have
What's it made up of, this fan club?
Family, people you've impacted as well, that keep reminding you what you're doing while you're there, how it makes a difference, and just encouraging you. And it's been everything from people stepping in to take care of my kids so I can travel sometimes. My mom is always there. My other mom is amazing. Everybody steps in to do that. So it's a real fan club of, shared experiences and, just those moments where you're like, oh, but this was me, when I was at this age, and this was my story. And you realize that people go through these things. So it's just also realizing there are a lot of shared experiences. And when you look at somebody 20 years later, you'd never imagine that this person maybe didn't go to school, maybe never had a chance to wear shoes, or even just normal struggles. We always say our parents were first in class, but you never know what actually happens. So all those shared experiences, to know that it's never hopeless. I think when we're going through bad times, it feels final, it feels fatal, it feels like it's never going to change, or like, oh my God. And yes, some things can be bad, but day by day. So learning that pause, I do take pauses.
What do these pauses look like?
I go away with my family. Sometimes I go away by myself. I have like a girls group that we go away with, and just having those moments, some of them quiet, some of them with people that are in your inner circle, and that helps, And then of course having mentors that tell you, hey, do you know you are doing this? Do you know you're doing that? So that really helps. Another thing is scheduling. So I think as entrepreneurs or as innovators, we tend to have 1 million ideas and want to implement them all at once. So it's also learning to pace yourself, and just be very conscious. It's tough, but you really need to feed your inner voice with the right things. And God helps. Believing in something bigger than yourself, believing in a purpose bigger than yourself, and believing that you wouldn't be on this journey if it wasn't where you were to be, also helps.
I hear you when you say it's a lonely journey, because it is, even with the fan club. And sometimes you find yourself wanting to tell people things which are not even necessary because you feel misunderstood, like you feel judged by maybe an employee who just doesn't get the whole story. Yeah. What is it that you wish your family, your friends knew about this journey and what it takes?
I think I've learned to understand that it's a journey, but you walk it on your own. Everybody can help, but nobody will really understand the day-to-day of it. And, hey, where am I getting my next sales from? Salaries are coming. But they can empathize. I think the thing is that everybody is going through their own struggles, and sometimes how do you share that weight? Who do you share it with? And how much do they understand? And I think it's just to have faith that they will take what they can. They will help how they can. They will not understand everything. Like with my staff, I used to tell them all the time when I was struggling. And I realized that if I worked for myself, would I want to work for someone who's always struggling, right? Yeah. They have to have something to aspire to. So it's also managing that. It's not always doomsday. Hey, there are things that are going well. So let's also try and celebrate those things. So
how do you celebrate?
I've been very bad at that, but I've had, people who've given me hints. Okay. So it could be anything from, just having food in the office. We're trying to do a bit more away days, just stuff like that. And just have recognition of, people that are doing or exhibiting behaviors that you want to encourage. So it's the little things,
Let's talk about company culture. Because you talk about this side of it where you're intentionally rewarding good behavior. Just company culture. Yeah. What is it? What is your understanding? What is your personal definition of what it is? And how are you going about building a culture that can deliver the results?
I have a lecturer who used to say, what is it? I think it's, it'll come to me. But I think, what is it? Culture eats for breakfast every day.
Yes.
I'm trying to remember what the actual...
I know the one you're trying to,
sentence is. But I think you have to be very deliberate. I had a conversation with another entrepreneur the other day, and she was talking about how, she's quick to fire, So if you don't get it, you have to go, because that one person who is not doing things right ends up polluting everybody else. So that's one. And then I was just doing an HR Coursera course as part of, an accelerator part of, and it's also simple things like your job description. Have you actually defined what the job is, what skills are needed for it? So soft skills, hard skills, and then training. Don't undermine or underestimate the impact of saying simple things. Wash your hands, put it on the wall. Make sure you wash your hands. This is the closing procedure. Before you close, do X, Y, Z. And then also the soft skills around, what is ethics? If somebody comes, if you see money on the table, do you take it home because you have problems, So having those conversations, I think, really does help. A lot of it is in communication, and also as a leader, having that vision of how you would like your organization to work. Be anything from customer service to returns to putting yourself in your customer's shoes. So building the organization on those tenets. So definitely we always have something to complain about. And I think education, again, is very fundamental to that, because what kind of upbringing did they have? What kind of opportunities do they have? What kind of exposure have you given them? So it's all that mix in creating the kind of people or culture that you want.
Policy. So let's imagine that we are sitting in front of policymakers, Africa's policymakers. What's the 1, 2, 3 things that you feel like you guys don't get it? And here are some of the things I want you to understand. What would you say?
We're getting to the end of the month, so taxes are a big one for me. I keep talking about them. I think there can definitely be more done in the scope of policy, tax policy for entrepreneurs. We need more waivers. We need more specific attention to our accounts. I remember going to the GRA the other day, and they told me that they hear me on City FM, so my books should reflect that, and I should be paying more taxes by this point. And I'm like, realistically, how long does it take for a startup to really get on their feet and be established? You would want them to be able to grow and create more jobs, create more economic impact before you start taxing them. And even in cases where we've heard about policies that provide waivers, they are not easy to get, and they come with their own conditionalities. I remember taking a 5-year waiver, and the tax authorities telling me, "Oh no, this is not for corporate tax; it's for dividends." And I'm like, "Who pays dividends?" So things like that, and just adjusted. If you have a limited liability, then it's like, the directors need to be paid a certain amount.
That one.
Yeah.
That one.
So I'm like, some of them are not considerate, especially knowing that a lot of entrepreneurs do not pay themselves because they're investing a lot in their businesses in the beginning. They're building assets. So even little things like capital allowances, what is allowed, what is disallowed. So I think a lot of attention needs to be given to that. Maybe even having like a separate unit that deals with SMEs, with the idea of building economy, making sure that they last. Too many businesses die within 5 years. I don't need to be spending so much on tax when I'm paying tax in other ways. So help me build the business in that sense, so that then we can become the giants. Because unfortunately, again, the bracket is still, it's almost like when you comply, it's like, we know this person, how much more can we get from them? Rather than how can we help it. So it's a big one, and maybe as a former tax consultant, it's one of the reasons it's so dear to my heart, because I can see so much more that can be done in that arena. Another thing that I've sort of spoken about, and we've had a lot of programs, mostly by developmental agencies and foreign governments that support entrepreneurs. And we've seen what the impact of that could be. Why aren't we doing that for ourselves? Why does somebody else have to come in and give us a kind of expertise that we need? So I would love to see that. And I know the Ministry of Trade and Industry has started something a bit with the business resource centers, I think they're called, across the country, but let them be impactful. I've had some interactions with GEPA that have been awesome. So you could see that the innovation is coming out, but let's help businesses more. And that would really be helpful, because what do we need? We need great people in our teams. We need a conducive business environment to be able to actually deliver on what we need. So those will be great starters for improving policy and the environment for entrepreneurs.
I agree, absolutely. What would you say to your younger self?
I have a daughter now, so I look at her growing up and I'm like, oh my God, we worry about so many things. Like, school is hard, bullying, image, and a lot of the things we become in future is based on what you go through in primary school or JSS. Were you part of the cool kids? Were you part of, and I think for me, my younger self is be confident. Don't worry when the pimples start coming out. All the things you experience as a young woman that you can't really talk about. Be confident and convicted. I think there are a lot of hurdles, particularly for young girls and for women as you grow, that are more. It's not to say that men don't struggle, but I think we have more hurdles now to cross over. So, just to pay attention to young girls and women and try and give them that confidence and empowerment. Yeah.
So the Kotoku collection, which you're rocking, by the way, was created to celebrate African entrepreneurs. And you are, of course, one of the entrepreneurs that we are celebrating with this vehicle. And your one-liner for your variant was, she persisted. Why?
I think she persisted is a phrase we've heard a lot in the feminist movement. And it speaks to exactly what I said before, women having bigger hurdles, in particular in business, in life, in just expectations of what they should do and what they should be doing. So you need to persevere. You need to keep getting up. You need to stand up and make your point in the room, even if every other person in the room, is a male, maybe. Don't be intimidated. There are a lot of decision making that is influenced by the patriarchy, but we need more representation. So you need to keep getting up. You get hit many times. Regroup, re-strategize, and keep at it, because eventually when you succeed, you don't succeed just for yourself, but it's a generational impact, just as the generation before us fought for us to even have the chance to go to work and have careers and all of that. So for me, she persisted is the embodiment of that female determination that in many ways is inherent in us, that helps us, wake up, make food, go to work, come back, and still take care of kids and get things done. So we wear many hats and wear them well. And you keep getting up and you keep pushing till the doors that need to be open are open. So that for me is why she persisted is relevant. And it's also a celebration of all the women before us that have taught us and that have achieved and shown us the alternatives, or shown us what is possible in balancing our lives and being a whole woman, as they say, not having to sacrifice, who you are because of your circumstance. So that is what she persisted means to me, and I hope that people that buy this collection can connect to that and relate to it.
I'm sure they will. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity and congratulations.
Thank you.
You keep doing amazing things.
Thank